Hi, everyone. Very good morning. I hope all of you are well, and thank you for joining us in actually the very final Passport to Success series talks for this month. And we will be focusing on a very interesting topic today, and that is how our students or you who are potentially planning ahead for your education, can experience the best of both worlds, which is the exact same UK degree here in Malaysia, while also having the opportunity to spend some time of your study life in the UK campus, our beautiful UK campus. And to discuss and explain, to give us insight about what life is like in the UK, in Reading, UK, we do have one of our renowned academics, which is the head of the Foundation Study and Language Institute. And we welcome today Associate Professor Bruce Howell. Hi, Bruce. Good morning.
Hello. Hello, Nishin. Hello, everybody. Good morning.
Thank you for joining us, Bruce. So as you may have already known in the previous editions, Bruce is the head of the Foundation Study and Language Institute. He is also one of our academics, and he runs the academic English program, and also is the campus director for international affairs. Is that right, Bruce?
That's the name, yeah, of the role.
Thank you, Bruce. So for all of you that are watching or will be watching this later on, we will have a very quick session today, about 45 minutes. So we will be speaking and I will be presenting to you about the Malaysia campus and a little bit about the program offerings and what we have for you over here. And then Bruce will dive into the topic of the day and give you insight about what life is like on the UK campus. And at the end of the session, we will have a FAQ, question and answer. So you are able to type in your questions to the chat and we will address them. So feel free to ask away. Now, for all of you watching, let me just share my screen. And Bruce, I'm going to need your help to just inform me if you can see the slides.
Okay, the slides are now available. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Bruce. So a very good morning again to all the viewers. Now, all of you may not be aware that the University of Reading in the UK is an established British Institute of Higher Learning. And in 2013, the university actually started its adventure here in Malaysia. So ever since then, we have been delivering some world-class programs over here in our state-of-the-art Iskandar campus, or is located here in EduCity Iskandar Putri. Now, for all the viewers and students, we are ranked 75th for international outlook globally. And the university itself does offer a number of world-class degree programs, both on the UK campus as well as the Malaysia campus. So on the UK, of course, the program offerings are much more huge. They have a little over 200 degree programs on offer, and of course, 150 postgraduate programs on offer. In Malaysia campus, we offer a more selected and focused area of disciplines and degree programs. So we've got about 8 programs here, as well as including 1 foundation and 7 different degrees. So that is a more focused program offering here in Malaysia campus. And of course, the University of Reading has a very unique history, whereby it began in 1892 as the Extension College of Oxford University, and then receiving its charter in between the 2 world wars in 1926, and then operating as an independent university. So ever since then, the University of Reading has produced hundreds of thousands of graduates in a variety of disciplines. And as I mentioned earlier, 2013, we started the adventure in Malaysia, but the new campus was not officially launched until 2016. So since then, we've had a growing community of students and academics here in Johor. And we have been already, I think we're closing in on the 10th year of operations in Malaysia, and we will be continuing to be here for the foreseeable future. Now, for all of you who do not know where the location of the Malaysia campus is, we are right down south in Peninsular Malaysia. We're in the state of Johor, which is right beside Singapore. Hence, we do have access to 2 international airports, which aren't too far away from the campus. We are also with a population, a very small and diverse population of 640 students. And as I mentioned earlier, we also have 8 programs on offer. So it is a conducive place for learning. It is a place that is designed for education purpose. So the students are really getting their money's worth. And at the same time, as Bruce will explain later on, you can actually do part of your degree on the UK campus. And these are some shots of our Malaysia campus. As you can see, we've got the facilities. It is a spacious campus. You have the library, you have the large lecture theatre, the classrooms, the moot court, and the computer labs and dealing rooms. So these are just some of the facilities that students have and will have access to throughout their journey as a undergraduate or foundation student. And these are some of the program offerings that we have on Malaysia campus. As I said, we only offer 8 focused programs, starting right from the foundation program or the international foundation program. That is a 1-year program that is basically the platform for you to leap on or go on to either one of the 7 degrees that we offer, or potentially even experiencing more degree programs on the UK campus. So we do have 4 different business programs. We also have law, psychology, as well as quantity surveying. And Reading has traditionally been famous for a number of programs, and agriculture, QS, as well as real estate have been some of the programs that are ranked very highly in the UK. So students are getting a quality UK education. So as I mentioned earlier, regardless of whether you are doing all 3 years here in Malaysia or you're doing part of your degree in the UK, you are getting the same UK degree as the UK campus. So you are paying for the same quality, you're going to learn in the same curriculum, and the guidance from the lecturers is no different than that is offered on the UK campus. Students do also have the opportunity to experience the Malaysia campus, not only to get the same degree, but also to be paying a cost of I would say 60% less than what you would traditionally pay if you were to spend your time on the UK. So you are getting a savings of 60% when you spend your time here in Malaysia. And this is just a cost estimation of the cost that you would be spending on the UK campus versus on Malaysia campus. So this is just an estimation. Of course, students' living costs may differ slightly depending on how prudently you spend, but all in all, the fees are pretty much in that range. And of course, the university is also led by the heads of school. Apart from the CEO and provost, we do have 5 heads of school, which are actually pioneers in their own disciplines. And as we can see here, Professor Tek Yong Ng, which is the head of Henley Business School, Associate Professor Anne Verghese and Dr. Bruno, each one of these lecturers and academics are active researchers, and at the same time, they are also lecturing on certain modules, and they lead their respective schools. And as you can see, Dr. Rachel Pai, as well as Associate Professor Bruce, which we have with us today, both of them are from the UK campus. So they have spent considerable amount of time over there as academics, as researchers, and now they are sharing their expertise and leading the school here in Malaysia campus. So they are the best people to go to get advice about how life is like on the UK and what you can expect as students, and also all the other options of on mobility and so on. So yeah, and also, as I mentioned earlier, we have the 5 schools here, which is each school is in its own way unique and has a rich heritage, of course. So they're not new schools. They have been providing the programs for a very long time on the UK campus. As you can see, the Foundation Study and Language Institute has been around for over 40 years. And at the same time, schools like Henley Business School, which began right back in 1945 and are still in operation right now, is one of the top business schools in the UK. We've also got the School of Law, which has been ranked top 10 for research, for best research intensive law school. We've got the School of Built Environment, consistently in the top 5 universities in the UK for the discipline of built environment, as well as School of Psychology and Clinical Language Sciences, which also celebrated its 100th anniversary this year. So as you can see, guys, it's not just a new university. It is a university with rich heritage and a rich history of research and teaching and learning expertise. Now, for those of you who are wondering what the pathways are like into our respective programs, you can see that SPM or IGCSE leaver or O-level leavers will need to do the 1-year foundation program, and from there they can choose and go on to either one of their respective degrees. And for those of you which have your own A-levels or STPM or even a diploma, that you may be able to go straight into the degree programs. And of course, we do offer, for those of you who want to enhance your English language communication as well as academic English, the University English program is there for you to use as a good start before you go on to your next 3 or 4 years of university life. And uniquely, all the programs that are delivered at the UK campus, it's the same. Whatever we have here in Malaysia is the same as what is offered on the UK campus. And we also do have scholarships whereby students, depending on the grades that they achieve, will be subject to receive the High Achiever Scholarship discounts of 20 all the way up to 30% of their year one fees. And the unique bit about the scholarship is that you can actually continue that into your first, second, or third year of degree, depending on how well you do each year. So if you are to get a good grade in year one of your degree, then you are able to continue that scholarship over to your second year and your third year. Okay, so for all of you who do want more information, you could simply go to your browser and type in reading.edu.my for the Malaysia campus or reading.ac.uk for information on the UK campus. Now, Bruce, I'm done with my class, Bruce, so I'm going to hand it over to you right now. And let me just share my screen again.
Hi, I'm back. So thanks very much.
No problem, Bruce.
Okay, so my task is to tell you a bit about the opportunities that go into the UK from the Malaysia campus. Perhaps I should just briefly introduce myself first. So yes, I've been with the University of Reading for, let's see, I think it's about 18 years now. And the last 4.5 of those years has been in Malaysia. I have a background in English teaching, in particular what we call EAP, which is English for Academic Purposes, and also a speciality in assessment of the EAP. And these days I head the department for foundation study and also English language here at the University of Reading, Malaysia. I've taken on another role in the last year or so, which is called the Campus Director of International Affairs. And this has come about because of the necessary organization and information sharing to talk about the options of transferring to the UK, or also the opposite direction as well, because we do that as well. We have the UK-based students coming to Malaysia's campus as well. So this is broadly called mobility, although there's a technical difference between transfer, which is when you go to a campus and stay there, and mobility, which is when you go to another campus and come back again to your original campus. So I'm overseeing all those activities. So I think that's why I'm here to talk to you about this today. So next slide, please, Michelle. Okay, so the first, perhaps most important question to start off with is why even do this? Why think about this? Well, obviously the costs are a major factor, and there may be some students or parents of students who think that you'd like to study in the UK anyway. Maybe your mind's already made up, but the factor of cost comes into it. So that's related to the slide earlier, which was showing a comparison cost. Of course, if you study your whole degree in Malaysia, it's going to be to put it crudely, the cheapest way of doing it, even though you do get the same degree at the end. If you go to the UK for the whole degree, it's going to be the most expensive way to do it. That's a fact. However, if you do some mobility, if you base your study in Malaysia and you spend a bit of time in the UK, then the costs are going to be a little bit higher than staying in the UK, but obviously not as high as staying in the UK for the whole degree. So you can kind of take your pick based on the costs, but obviously you need a reason to go in the first place. Okay, so I'm going to talk about Reading in particular. Obviously, going to any university in the UK has some kind of similar benefit, but let's look at Reading. Well, first of all, the location. So Reading is one of those very few universities which is near London, but not in London. So that means going to London, and especially going to Heathrow Airport, is actually very easy indeed. You can actually get from Heathrow Airport to Reading quicker than you can get from Heathrow to the centre of London. And you can easily take a day trip on a train to go to London from Reading. However, it doesn't have the extra high costs of London. And it doesn't, have the same level of pollution and general busyness of London. So for some people anyway, it's an ideal location from that point of view. So when you do arrive from Malaysia, Heathrow is always the airport where planes arrive. And, it's compared to a lot of places, it is rather convenient to get to Reading. Reading is also near to other places like Oxford, Bath, Bristol, and places like Stonehenge, and even the coastline, Brighton, places like that are not too far away. So a bit of travel and day trips and so on are perfectly possible. Reading is very well connected by train. You can go to Scotland, you can go to Cornwall, although obviously they're a bit further, but that's nevertheless available on your doorstep. But again, perhaps more important than any of that is that from the point of view of being a student, it is of course a transition from being a child to an adult in many ways. And what employers really want to see by the time a student graduates is someone who's had various experiences, they've got a mature point of view of themselves and the world. And one way of building that up is to travel. And if you study in another country and you meet people from all over the world and you get to hear different points of view from different types of lecturers and all that kind of thing, then that is good for the person and it's good for your CV. And Reading is a great place to do this because the campus in Reading is a nice, peaceful, open space near to a busy town and near to a busy city. It has people from all over the world. There are lots of international students in Reading, UK, and of course it's a much bigger campus than the one in Malaysia. And Reading itself is actually quite a culturally mixed town. Anyway, there's been waves of immigration over the decades, which makes it a very interesting place where you can buy halal food easily, for example. And there's lots of cultural events that happen that related to Caribbean culture and Polish culture and Irish culture, as well as English culture, because it's a very English town, despite having the diverse mix. So it's a really interesting place. It has its history as well. There's a very old, historically important abbey ruins in the town, and it's a nice town in general. You've got all the shops you need and lots of restaurants, of course. And finally, one reason to go to the UK campus as compared with the Malaysia campus is that there's opportunity to develop different contacts. So that means you might meet a professor who has a particular research interest that you find really interesting. And then you're thinking, well, maybe after I graduate, maybe if I'm thinking about a PhD or a master's later on, then I've already got the link for my future studies. The same goes with links to future employment as well. One thing we would say, there's a sort of basic rule of thumb, is that if you spend your final year of study in Malaysia, then you've got really good opportunities to develop your contacts with possible future employers in the region, in Johor, in Malaysia, in Singapore, and so on. Whereas if you spend your final year in the UK, then you've got a different opportunity to develop your contacts with possible future employers, those in the UK and Europe. So that's another reason to consider when you might go to the UK, if you're thinking about it, but we'll come to those details in a moment. Okay, so if you can move on, Nishin, thanks. Okay, so just a couple of slides of pictures. You already had a brief flash of a picture of the Malaysia campus. So in contrast, as you can see, it's a much wider space that we have in the UK. Again, we talk about the best of both worlds, but you can see the benefits of both. So to spend some time in Malaysia and some time in the UK is kind of like a perfect balance in many ways. So the campus in the UK is very green, it's open former estate, and it has a few old historical buildings, as well as plenty of modern buildings, as you can see. It also has a lake. And I'm not sure if everyone's familiar with the climate in the UK, but it is much more, it's much easier, shall we say, than it is in Malaysia to sit outside on a sunny day. And a lot of people do that, as you can see. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so here's a few general shots of students themselves, of course. So just to highlight the things that Reading is particularly proud of in terms of student life. The first one, and perhaps the biggest thing in terms of the student experience, is the interactive teaching. So we tend to, when possible, have small group teaching. So there are sometimes very large lectures. You might get 200 or 300 people in a room when it's necessary, but they're always backed up with tutorials. And this is true both in the UK campus and the Malaysia campus. So even though the UK is a big place with thousands of students, we still concentrate on small group teaching. Of course, these days, there's a lot of online teaching happening, again, in both countries. And we've had time now to really hone our skills on this. And so making them interactive and engaging for students is our priority. And that's definitely what we do. Also, as I said, it's very international. We get a lot of students from China, as does every UK university. We get plenty of students from other Asian countries, obviously including Malaysia as well. The Malaysian students in the UK campus are not only coming from the Malaysia campus, there were already some that are going directly there as well. And Thailand and India, et cetera, and there's plenty of African students as well, especially certain subjects that tend to attract them. And then we also have study abroad agreements with all sorts of countries in Europe, USA, Australia, as well as Japan and other places. So there's definitely opportunities to make international friends, that's for sure. There's also a Muslim center on the campus, and a Christian center, and what else? There's a Korean shop with all sorts of Asian food in it, and so on. I could go on. Then there's the general social spaces and cafes. There's plenty of them, some of which are inside, some of which are outside. And last but not least, as a student, you have the opportunity to join one of many, many clubs or societies, all sorts of the type of things you might expect, but also some unusual ones as well. And so this is one of the reasons that if you do go to the UK, we recommend that you go a week earlier than your studies start, so that you have that extra week at the beginning, the welcome week, to make sure that you can sign up to new societies and make new friends that way. Okay, so next. Okay. Right, so this is an important one, this one. Hopefully the infographic is useful illustration. I'll just explain it carefully so that you make sure you understand what this means. So inter-campus mobility options are as follows. This means the different options of using the Malaysia campus in order to go to the UK or not. There's actually quite a few options to look at. So let's look at them one by one. The first one is an obvious one. You could perfectly okay to do this, to spend your entire degree in Malaysia. And I've included the IFP year, which is the International Foundation Program year as well here. So that may not be relevant to everybody, but I think the majority of our students do the foundation year, followed by the degree. So we're looking at the total 4 years here. It's possible to stay in Malaysia for the whole 4 years. It's possible to start off in Malaysia and you haven't quite made up your mind when you start, so you can choose later. That's, you know, that's part of why we say it's flexible. So let's say we're starting in Malaysia for the IFP in all cases. That's what we're talking about. So at the end of the IFP, we're looking at the second option now. There is the option to transfer from the Malaysia campus to the UK campus for the whole 3 years of the degree, or sometimes it's 4 years, depending on the degree, usually 3 years. So that's fairly simple. Now, what that option means is that you don't actually need to go through the usual application process through UCAS. I mean, if you wanted to keep your options open and perhaps go to another university as well, then you do have to use UCAS. But if you've got your mind set on Reading and you're doing your IFP in Malaysia, then you just need to tell us basically that you want to transfer to the UK and we will arrange it. And the progression from the IFP to year 1 is the same. It doesn't, the levels expected are the same, whether you stay in Malaysia or whether you go to the UK. Because actually the IFP also exists in the UK, and again, the rules for the students there is just the same. Looking at the third option now, this is actually our recommended one, and it's also the most popular one. So this is where the student will start the IFP in Malaysia. They will do their year 1 in Malaysia. They go to the UK for year 2, and then they come back for year 3. So you can see that the advantage of this is that, well, the advantages of this is that it's not going to be quite so costly because it's only 1 year in the UK. And the other advantage is that if you're getting ready for employment locally in Malaysia, then it's best to be in Malaysia for the final year. That's the reason that we recommend it. It's a kind of default recommendation. However, your situation may not be relevant to your situation, so it is your choice. So the fourth option, and this is a new one actually, a new one which has been confirmed recently, is to spend the foundation in Malaysia, to spend years 1 and 2 in Malaysia, and then go to the UK for year 3, the final year. There is a little asterisk on this, and that is to explain to you that if you did this option, the module choice may be a bit narrower than if you were studying the whole degree in the UK, because your module choice in the final year depends on what modules you did in the second year. And also, there may be some implications on accreditation. So I think, if I'm right, for example, the quantity surveying BQSM accreditation is only valid if you spend at least 2 years in Malaysia, I believe. So it would be okay actually for the fourth option, but not for the fifth option. So, but these things change all the time. You need to check them out. But in general, there's very little disadvantage of any of these options. You just have to check your personal situation. So the final option here, the fifth one, is to do half and half. So you do your IFP and year 1 in Malaysia, and then you transfer to UK. You could call that 2+2, I guess, if you wanted to, but we don't call it a 2+2 because this is not some partnership with another university. This is the same university. So for us, all these options, whichever one you do, has the same validity, and no one option is better than the other. Your choice is about what you want to do and what experience you want to have. Okay, so thanks. Could we have the next slide, please? Right, yes, so this is about degree choice. So yeah, the list you can see here are the 7 programs that University of Reading, Malaysia run. There's the program of law, the program of psychology. There is one program within built environment, and that's quantity surveying. And then there are the 4 programs within Henley Business School. But if you were to go to the UK for your whole degree, for your whole degree, and I'm talking about the IFP in Malaysia and then the whole degree in the UK, this option, then you've got a lot more options to look at. So could we have the next? Yeah, thanks. So the things in yellow here, the degrees in yellow, are the additional options that you could do if you take the IFP only in Malaysia and then you do your whole degree in the UK. So in the built environment school, there's construction management and architecture. And then on the right-hand side, you've got all sorts of other options. There's politics, international relations, economics, computer science, agricultural subjects, environmental subjects, development studies, and even museum studies. And then actually in the Henley Business School, there are also a lot more options because there are many types of accounting courses, finance courses, and management courses. So if this is something that you're thinking of doing, if you're thinking of doing the IFP foundation year only in Malaysia and then going to the UK, then what you need to do is you need to look at the UK website or the UK brochure prospectus and look at all the options, because it is a much wider options than we have in Malaysia, and you may find something which fits perfectly, and it may be different from whatever you can do in Malaysia. So that's for a particular scenario. We're always happy to answer questions about this. Okay, so we can move on. Yes, okay, so I'm just going to preempt a few questions before we open to your live questions. So the first question, which we always get, is, are there any discounts? The answer is yes. Okay, can you reveal the answer, Nisha? Thanks. Yes, there is quite a generous discount of 20% from the UK tuition fees. Now, and if you calculate this, if you know what the UK tuition fees are, then you can see this is quite generous. However, just to be clear, it is only for the first year that you're in the UK. If you're transferring for 2 years, then the first year is discounted, the second year isn't. So you can calculate fairly accurately what the cost of the whole study will be, depending on your scenario. Okay, next question. Yes, this is a common question. Is it difficult to transfer? You know, is it a lot of trouble? Is it paperwork? The answer is no. It's a lot easier actually to transfer than it is to apply to the UK directly, because you need to go through UCAS and so on if you did that, or perhaps an agent. There's certainly no need to use an agent if you're starting in the UK, starting in Malaysia and transferring to the UK with us. And there's also no need to use UCAS, as I said. We quite simply have dedicated officers who are dealing with these requests, and we do it internally because we have the same database system for students here in the UK. It's just a case of pressing the right buttons. And my role as the Campus Director of International Affairs is I'm overseeing this and making sure that the communication happens well. The students are told of their options. They're given a simple form to fill in if they're interested, and we keep them updated, and then we support them with their visas and so on. So no, it's not difficult, is the short answer. And then the next common question is, what's the most popular choice? I've actually already told you the answer to this. Yes, it's to do with the IFP year, foundation year, and then year 1 in Malaysia. Do year 2 in the UK, and then come back for year 3 in Malaysia, for the reasons that I briefly mentioned before. Okay, so I hope that was all very interesting for you and useful. I think it's probably time now for us to open the floor. Nishin, can you just check that that is the end of the slideshow? I think it is. Yeah. Okay, I am very happy to be the person to try to answer your questions. Perhaps Nishin can also answer some of the questions. So let's open the floor now.
Hi, Bruce. So thank you very much for providing us insight very patiently and very in detailed about the UK. I never knew that there was so much diversity on the UK campus with the food options and the cultural festivals and the programs that the students can actually go on and progress to do even after completing their foundation here in Malaysia Campus. So Bruce, well, we don't see any questions yet in the live chat at the moment. So perhaps I will kickstart the Q&A and ask a few questions that we have received from parents and students before this. And also apart from the scholarships and apart from, whether it's easy to go to the UK, students also are keen to know whether it's, what is required of them. Do they need to get a certain score in the year before, or do they need to achieve a certain grade before they're allowed to go to the UK? And if there are any caps to it, do we limit the number of people going on to the UK? So what would your insight be on this?
Okay, well, the second question first, are there any caps? No, not at all. So there's no worries about you can't go to the UK because it's full. That's not a problem. Don't worry about that.
That's awesome.
In terms of the what we would call progression, which is moving from one year to the next, it's basically the same whether you are transferring campus or whether you are staying in the same campus. It's the same thing. So there is a requirement that you need to get a certain grade at the end of your foundation year in order to progress to the undergraduate degree, and you need to get a certain grade at the end of your year 1 in order to go to year 2 and so on. And you need to get a certain grade to graduate at the end, of course. And that's all part of the quality control. We certainly don't just automatically progress every student. We have the quality control there. So in the case of the foundation to the undergraduate courses, okay, it's actually slightly different depending on the degree. You get percentage scores for all of the assessments that we give.
Okay.
Where we define the basic pass mark as being 40%. The 50% is kind of a sort of an okay mark. 60% is a good mark, and 70% is a very good mark, excellent mark. That's the basis of all of our school systems. So in general, although like I say, they are slightly different, the general requirement to go from the IFP level to year 1 is about the 60% mark. So somebody who gets just 40% in their foundation year, they pass, but they don't have a high enough score to progress to the degree. And that's the same whether you're going to UK or whether you're staying here. And then when it comes to the year 1 to year 2 and year 2 to year 3, it's a basic 40% pass you must have, but there also may be certain specified particular things you need to do within each degree that will be explained as they go along. It might be, for example, you must have a couple of specific modules must be passed at a certain level, but normally it's just basically 40% for progressing.
Okay, that's great. I mean, of course, students wouldn't want to aim for 40%. Everyone wants to get a better grade and so on. Yeah. So I think it will be good for them to know that, you can progress to the UK, but you do need to also perform at a certain level before you go on to the UK.
Yeah, and if
And
I could just add, when it comes to the foundation, it's not easy to get the 60%, or actually sometimes 70%. So you actually need a 70% in the maths in order to go from the foundation to an accounting degree.
exactly.
There is a little bit of flexibility, so it's not something that people should just give up and think, oh, I can't do that, you know.
Okay.
And also, people should be assured that we do have a very high success rate. There are very few students who just don't make it, and those students who do the foundation and don't make it almost always get a place in another university anyway.
Okay, that's great to know. I think that'll be a relief for students, and the fact that I'm pretty sure that they get the amount of support that's the same as what students would on the UK campus. You know, I think they have their academic tutors. You know, they have
Yes.
their lectures and
Yeah.
their seminars. So it's ample amount of time that they get in touch with the lecturers, and I think would you say that the smaller number of students that we have on campus is actually an advantage for them, for their learning, you know, compared to a bigger environment where you have hundreds of students versus just a small amount of people?
That's an interesting question. I think really it depends on the person when it comes down to it. But I think to return to what we were mentioning before, the best of both worlds is to try both. Because, you know, a student doesn't really know what's best for them until they experience it anyway. So if you were to spend a year or two here, a year or two in the UK, you experience both, then maybe you can only answer that question afterwards. But like I say, even on the UK campus, I mean, there may be a few occasions where people might feel a bit overawed by this huge quantity of students around, but usually that's not the case. Actually, we have our tutorials. There may be only 10 students in the tutorial, maybe even smaller groups sometimes. You still get your one-to-one academic tutor who can speak to you one-to-one, whatever campus it is. But yes, there are some that say that the Malaysia campus has the advantage of being much smaller and much more concentrated, so that you have a higher proportion of your time is spent in small groups. But I wouldn't generalize and say that Malaysia is always small groups and the UK is always large groups. That's not true. I mean, basically our concept of how we do lectures, how we do seminars, how we do academic tutorials is the same on both campuses.
That's great. I think it's important to, since although we are the branch campus of the UK, but we follow the same standards set by them. So, you know, when it comes to assessment, when it comes to the exams, when it comes to the learning experience, you know, they get what they are paying for. It's the same learning experience. Bruce?
Sorry, if I could just add to that again.
Yeah.
Again, if you were doing the 2+2 where you were going from one university to another, which is probably a great experience, the one thing that might not be so great is that you would get that kind of institutional culture shock when moving. You might go from one place to another, whereas everything they do is completely different. The way they do tutorials, the way they do lectures, the way they communicate with you. And that might be a bit difficult to deal with. But at Reading, if you're going from Reading, Malaysia to Reading, UK, you don't have that culture shock because the systems are the same as well.
That's good to know. I mean, we've encountered that a lot where students want to kickstart their education with one institution and then want to jump off to a different place. And we get that question
in Malaysia, isn't it?
Yeah, it's whether it's a UK institution or some even go on to Australia or other parts of the world. So I think that's very important to make them realize that the institutional culture shock is something real, and you know it takes a bit of adapting to for that bit. Bruce, you also mentioned. We actually have a question in the chat, Bruce. So Dominic, yep, thanks for the question, Dominic. Now, can we do the final year in the UK instead? Bruce?
Yes. I mean, I'm not sure what you mean instead of what, but to do the final year only, in the UK, and
Yeah,
everything
I think that's what it means. So kickstarting here in Malaysia and then doing the final year in the UK.
That is an option. Yes. There are certain things you need to consider about that option. So one of them is what are you going to do after the final year? Perhaps it's important, perhaps it isn't. But I mean, if you're looking to go into employment locally in Malaysia directly after graduating, it might be a bit more difficult. If you're coming back from the UK, it might not be. If you're looking for employment internationally, maybe it's better to be in the UK for that final year. Like I say, there's also a few things that you need to just double check, and you've plenty of time to check this before you make your final decision. But you need to check with your program lead about whether there's any implications on accreditation. That's the other thing to check.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for answering that. We've got another question coming in from Zan Fong. Zan Fong, thank you for your question. Now, is there any scholarship available for international students?
Okay, yeah, this is an interesting one. So we should try to not confuse scholarships and discounts. I've already said that there is a discount. It's a standard discount for anyone coming from the University of Reading, Malaysia, to University of Reading, UK, 20% on the first year. So that is not a scholarship, that's a discount. That's a sort of loyalty discount, I suppose, because you're already registered as a student. And that's automatic. It doesn't matter how high or low you've scored, as long as you've got the basic grades to progress, you get that discount. The scholarships that you mentioned earlier, Nishan, are for the Malaysia campus only. This is to do with achievement. So if you score a large number of A's at school, or you score high percentage in your foundation, then the next year you can have a scholarship amount discounted from your Malaysia fees. Those scholarships are not valid in the UK, unfortunately. It's basically a completely different fee structure in the UK, and we're basically not allowed to do it actually in the UK. You know, the way that fees are set in the UK are controlled by the government. So there aren't such things. I mean, but there are external scholarships through the British Council and through other routes, which you can check out on the UK website. If I'm honest, I think it's very unlikely that a typical student from University of Reading, Malaysia, going to the UK is going to get one of those discounts, but scholarships. But you never know. You can always try. But it's not something that we provide, because we provide the discount instead of the scholarship.
That's good to know, Bruce. So if there were an international student that is going to do all 3 years of his or her degree in Malaysia campus, then they are bound to get whatever discounts or scholarships that we offer here.
Locally, yeah.
Yeah. And then if they're going to the UK, then they have that one-time 20% off.
Yeah, you can look at it, again, best of both worlds, because in a sense, in that case, you're getting two separate things. You're getting a scholarship here and a discount there.
Yeah. Okay, that's great. Okay, so Zan Fong has come in with a second question. How about the Vice Chancellor Global Scholarship?
Well, that's interesting, because I've not heard of that. Maybe it's something new. Is it something that you found on the website, perhaps? I will check it out straight away.
Yeah.
I honestly don't know, but presumably, if it's something that's been publicised, then the terms and conditions are written on the website. But I apologise, I don't actually know about that.
No problem.
I must check it out.
I think Zanfong, we will check, and we will reply you on the chat later on after we've got more clarity on that. Because of course our focus is mainly on the Malaysia campus, and then you progressing to the UK. But some updates in the UK are not always given to us at promptly. But yeah, we can find that out for you. We don't see any questions at the moment, Bruce. Welcome. Okay, so with regard to Accommodation, Bruce, on the UK campus. So I'm pretty sure that they have their own accommodation. What insight can you give us about that, about living on the UK campus?
Yeah, that's an important question, that one, because where exactly you're living and who you're living with is a really important question for students. It makes a big difference. So unlike the Malaysia campus, which is small and we don't have our own accommodation, as we know, the situation is totally different in UK. I'm not sure the exact number. I think it might be 15. We've got 15 approximately blocks owned by the university of student accommodation. So that's quite a few thousand rooms. I'm not sure how many exactly. And it's definitely possible as long as you apply. I think it's something like 6 or 7 weeks before arriving in the UK, at least before that time. As long as you apply, you will get a room. You maybe not get your first choice, but you'll get a room on campus. And there's not a huge difference between all the different halls, but they're basically the same. But the main difference is if you choose catering or catered or non-catered. So if you're self-catered, rather. So if you're self-catered, then you've got to cook yourself every day. And if it's catered, then it's easier, but more costly, obviously. But either way, they're very social spaces. You always get rooms with a shared kitchen and a sort of social space in addition to the kitchen as well. And that's often where you make your best friends. And it might be a little bit awkward on day one, but within a couple of weeks, you've already started to make a few new friends. And the big thing about it is that almost without exception, the halls in Reading are within walking distance of all the facilities. You can walk to the library, you can walk to your lectures, you can walk to your tutorial meetings, you can stop off at the cafe on the way back. There's a shop on campus, you can get your bagels, you can get your hair cut, all walking distance from accommodation. So I would really strongly recommend staying in the accommodation. The people who don't tend to be people who have some kind of maybe family connection, or their older brother is already there and they want to share or something like that, and they go private. Or they might have some other reason. They want to stay with their aunt or something like that, which is fine as well, of course, if it's convenient. But the obvious choice is to stay in the student halls, yeah. And again, look on the website, you can see lots of videos, pictures, it's all there.
I think it's worth mentioning to the viewers that some of our students at the UK campus or prior to this have actually done some interesting videos of their student life and experience as well. And that's available on YouTube. So you could actually watch or simply type in University of Reading, and there will be a couple of videos that is done purely on the UK campus, traveling around Reading town, getting to places around it. So that's good insight, Bruce. Thanks for letting us know. So I think that's also the safer choice for students to live within the campus grounds rather than go out to.
There's security and all sorts of locks, so the swipe locks and security measures like that.
Awesome, Bruce. And also, what are the type of activities apart from these cultural events? I do understand that there is a sports facility in Reading. So is that huge? How popular is that among students, or what can students expect when they go there? We might have, our sports enthusiasts, those in athletics or football sorts.
Well, I wouldn't quite call it huge. I'd call it very big. The one thing that Reading Uni doesn't have is a swimming pool, I'm afraid. But Reading does have its own swimming pool. But apart from the swimming pool, we've got rugby pitches, we've got a cricket pitch, we've got football grounds, we've got tennis courts, indoor and outdoor. We've got squash courts, we've got a very large gym, indoor basketball with yoga, you name it, it's there. And all students are automatically members of the sports club, the organization. But obviously particular clubs may have a small fee or particular courses, that kind of thing, but there's lots to do, definitely, yes. And again, this is walking distance of the halls and the lecture theatres as well. It's part of the greenery of the campus. It's there. The main sports hub is right by the entrance, the main entrance of the university.
Okay.
Very popular. The one exception is that if you want to do rowing, if you happen to be into rowing, they do have a very good boat club. You have to go down to the River Thames in town to actually join in with that. I think that's quite a specialist skill, that one, but it's
yeah, and
yeah,
I think it's worth mentioning that we also have a couple of our Reading alumni that were part of the Olympics recently in the rowing event. So wow, okay.
Yeah. There are, every time there's Olympics, there's at least a few former Reading people who are getting medals, and almost always they're rowers, because we do have a very good rowing club.
That's great. That's good to know. Bruce, I don't see any questions in the chat at the moment. I believe we can actually wrap up the session today. So I would like to thank you for giving us insight about the UK, about what are the options for mobility and transfer, as well as what students can expect throughout their 1 year or 3 years of journey there on the UK campus. So yes, Bruce, thank you very much. And Bruce, just one piece of advice for students who are considering, doing a foundation or degree, they might have not done with their exams, maybe they're considering it next year. What would your advice be for those students, which are, sometimes it goes down to the amount of scholarships that an institute provides. That's very popular in Malaysia.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's about the quality of the place, but more often than not, it's always about money. So what would your advice be for students who are considering an institute of higher learning? What should they look for before they go?
Another good question. You're very good at asking questions. So money is obviously a serious consideration, and I think as a student making your decisions, if your parents are sponsoring you, of course you mustn't forget about. You should have a frank discussion with your parents about what's the budget. But on the other hand, that should not be the only thing that makes your decision. Of course, this is a kind of life-changing decision. And if perhaps delaying the decision for a few months is the answer, then why not? I mean, we do at Reading now have the April intake for both foundation and undergraduate. So if you've just missed the boat for some reason in September, don't worry. There's the next round's coming in April for most, if not all, of our options. And the UK transfer, by the way, is perfectly valid if you start in April as well. But the main things to consider as a student is, what are you interested in and what do you want to do in the future? Well, actually, I suppose there's a third one, which is, where do you want to be? What kind of situation do you want to be in the next few years?
Exactly.
So all of those are highly important. It's difficult to say which one is the most important. I think the middle one, what would you like to be in the future? There's quite a few students who don't really know when they start. If you do know, if you absolutely got your mind set on, I'm going to be a barrister, therefore I'm going to have to do my law foundation, I'm going to have to do my LLB, then that's fine. But you should, that's the route you're going, and the only consideration is where and how much. But if you're one of those students who doesn't really know what you want to do in the future, then it's what are you interested in? That should be your main motivation. And I would hope that Reading offers some subjects that most people are interested in. And if you do have the option of going to the UK, like I say, the options of subjects is wider, so that may be a reason to come to the Reading IFP and intend to go to the UK, even if we don't have that program here in Malaysia. So yeah, and because you can look at the not only just the name of the program, but you can look at what the modules are within the program. Because you might say, well, for example, psychology, I think it's interesting, but I don't really. You can quite easily find out what you're going to study by looking at the list of modules, and then you might make some discovery. You think, oh, really? I didn't realize that the kind of HR work is related to psychology. I didn't know that, but they've actually got a module about that here.
Okay.
Management behavior or something like that. So you can discover a lot by analyzing what the actual modules of the courses are. Yeah, so if you're not sure what you're going to do, choose a subject which is interesting to you and one which is going to open lots of doors. I think, to be honest with you, most programs do open lots of doors. So a general business management program is going to open lots of doors. Something like accounting and finance is narrower. So in general, people who do accounting and finance, they're going to work for a bank or an insurance company or an accountancy firm. But you can still do something else, but it's a bit less likely. But so that reflects that a lot of people who choose accounting and finance, they know what they want to do, which is fine. That's absolutely fine. But with law or psychology, it's very open actually. You don't have to be a lawyer if you study law, and you don't have to be a clinical psychologist if you study psychology. There's actually lots of options you could take after that. So I suppose the final thing I would say is just ask questions. Experts like Nishin here, who can talk about the programs, could probably put you in touch with the actual program leaders if you're seriously interested to get your questions answered. But yeah, do it. Don't hesitate too much, but also don't rush into it. So you might be hesitating because of the pandemic still, maybe at the moment.
Yep.
Give yourself 6 months breathing space. Do your research properly. Just look at the courses, what's available, what modules are on each program, and ask lots of questions. But aim high. Don't think I can't do this. You should always be thinking this is something I can do. I can do my best, because there's plenty of people who will support you on your journey.
It's great to know, Bruce. Thank you for your piece of advice. And thank you for all the viewers that have patiently viewed the past hour of the explanation and session today. We will be having future sessions like this in the coming months. And until then, please stay safe. Bruce, thank you again for your advice and session. And we shall meet you soon. So thank you very much, guys. Bye-bye.
Okay, thanks. Hope to see you at Reading.